Hello friends, welcome to a new topic today. In this chapter, we are going to learn a few points about scalp, okay, in head and neck. So first, what is scalp? So scalp, first we will see the extent of scalp, okay. Scalp extends laterally on each side up to the superior temporal node, okay. Scalp, if you see, first anteriorly it is up to brows, okay, laterally it is up to superior temporal line, and posteriorly it is present up to the superior nuchal lines. So what does the scalp starts? It is anteriorly up to eyebrows, laterally up to the superior temporal line, and posteriorly up to the superior nuchal lines. So this is the extent of the scalp. Then if you see the layers of the scalp, so in that, first we have the superficial layer, which is skin. Okay, what is the first layer? First layer is skin. So what do you see in skin? This skin is attached to the deeper layers, that is, it is attached to the aponeurotic layer with the help of connective tissue. Okay, it has multiple hairs, right? We have in the scalp, we have multiple hairs, and there is multiple hair follicles. There are sebaceous glands present in the scalp, and even you find sweat glands, sebaceous glands are present. If you see, the one liner here is scalp is the most common site of sebaceous cysts. Among all the others, it is the most common site of sebaceous cysts because of the presence of many sebaceous glands and sweat glands. Okay, the next thing is about the connective tissue. So in the connective tissue, this connective tissue is actually a superficial fascia. Okay, if you see, so this connective tissue is actually a superficial fascia which is present, and this is which type of connective tissue? It is dense fibrous type of connective tissue. Here if you see this connective tissue, there are some numerous septa which are seen, right? This is a septum, this is a septum, this is a septum, like that we have numerous septa, fine small fibrous septa are present, and these are dividing the whole connective tissue into many pockets or lobules of fat. These fibrous septa are dividing it into small lobules of fat, right? And it has blood vessels and nerves. Definitely the blood vessels are adherent to the fibrous network, so that if there is torn, if they are torn, because they are adherent to the fibrous network, if they are torn, they cannot retract, and as a result there is profuse bleeding. So these blood vessels are actually adherent to the fibrous network which is present. So these blood vessels, whenever they are torn, they are unable to retract it, and this will lead to the formation of profuse bleeding because of unretraction of blood vessels. Okay, so this is one thing which you have to remember. Then how can you stop this bleeding? You can stop this bleeding by applying pressure over the site of the bleeding. Okay, then the what is the second site? If you see the second layer we have is aponeurotic layer. So this is the this layer which you are seeing here, this is the aponeurotic layer, or also called as galea or epicranial layer. So what is this aponeurosis made up of? This is made up of the aponeurosis of muscle fibers. So if you see, what is the muscle fibers which are present? Anteriorly here you have, anteriorly you have frontalis muscle, posteriorly you have occipitalis muscle. Both these combined together, the aponeurosis of both these muscles form this aponeurosis. Okay, that is occipitofrontal aponeurosis. So it has two frontal bellies and two occipital bellies. Here in aponeurosis, the wounds do not gape. Okay, the wounds of the scalp do not gape unless the epicranial aponeurosis is cut transversely. If the epicranial aponeurosis is cut transversely, then the wounds will gape, or else the wounds will not gape. Why? Because this aponeurosis is under tension. So when you cut it, because it is under high tension, which is bounded by anterior one muscle, that is frontalis, and posterior by other muscle, that is occipitalis. So because of this aponeurosis, because of it is a tense structure, so when you cut it, it does not wound properly. Okay, doesn't gape properly. Okay, because of the tension which you see. Then if you see the fourth layer, the fourth layer is loose areolar tissue. So what do you see in the loose areolar tissue? In the loose areolar tissue, this is the loose areolar tissue, this layer, and here this is the natural plane of cleavage during craniotomy. During craniotomy, this loose areolar tissue is the natural plane of cleavage during craniotomy. And if you see, this loose areolar tissue contains this emissary veins. Emissary veins are traversed in the loose areolar tissue. So if you see, this is the emissary veins. which are seen from the, see, this is emissary vein. So these are the emissary veins which are traversed through the loose areolar tissue. Next we have the last layer, which is pericranium. So what is this layer is pericranium, this layer. Okay, what is this pericranium? This is the periosteum of the bone which is surrounding the bone. Okay, every bone has periosteum. Similarly, even this cranium has periosteum, so it is formed by the periosteum of cranial vault. Okay, it is loosely attached to the bone. At sutures, it is attached to sutural membranes, or else it is loosely attached to the bone. Okay, so this is about the scalp. So what do you see in scalp? In scalp we have mainly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers which are seen in the scalp. One is the skin, connective tissue, aponeurotic tissue, aponeurotic layer, loose areolar tissue, and pericranium. In the skin, if you see, it has maximum hair follicles, and this is adhered to the aponeurotic layer with the help of the connective tissue. And this skin, because of the presence of sweat glands and salivary glands, sweat glands and sebaceous glands, this is the most common site of sebaceous cyst formation. Then connective tissue is present below the skin and above the aponeurotic layer, and this connective tissue is a dense connective tissue. Because it is dense connective tissue, it also has regular septations, and as a result the whole fat is divided into many lobules of fat with the help of numerous septa, and these lobules of fat also contains the blood vessels and nerves. There is vein, artery, and also nerves are present in this connective tissue. And when these arteries or veins, they are connected to the deeper blood vessels also, and as a result, when you cut them, when these are cut, it is difficult to stop the bleeding because of they are adherent to the fibrous network. Okay. Next about aponeurosis or Galeal epicranial aponeurosis. Here this is a tense structure. Because it is tense structure, because it is attached to the frontalis and occipitalis, it is a tense structure. So the wounds, whenever there are wounds, these wounds do not gape. Then if you see the loose areolar tissue, these loose areolar tissue will serve as a natural plane of cleavage during craniotomy, and these are traversed by emissary veins. Then we have pericranium. This pericranium is formed by the periosteum of bone, and it is attached to the bone loosely, and even this pericranium is also attached to the bone at the suture line. Okay. Next we will see about a few points about occipitofrontalis muscle. Okay, so if you see, this is the occipitofrontalis muscle. Okay, it has 2 frontal bellies and 2 occipital bellies. So we have separate things. So we have, what do you have? We have mainly we have 2 occipital bellies, and we also have 2 frontal bellies and 2 occipital bellies, right? So what does the frontal belly do? Frontal bellies are the site of these frontal bellies. Where did they originate from? The origin of frontal belly is from skin and subcutaneous tissue over the eyebrows. From skin and subcutaneous tissue over the eyebrows and nose, from there will be origination of frontal belly. Then where are they inserted? This is the insertion point for both, that is both frontal and occipital belly. Both these are inserted on epicranial aponeurosis. Okay, both these are inserted in epicranial aponeurosis. If you see frontal belly, it is supplied by temporal branch of facial nerve. Frontal belly is supplied by temporal branch of facial nerve. So this is the temporal branch of facial nerve which you are seeing here. Okay, so both these nerves are actually frontal belly is actually innervated by temporal branch of facial nerve. Okay, so this is the temporal branch of facial nerve which you are seeing here, right? If you see occipital belly, this occipital belly, it originates from the lateral 2/3 of superior nuchal lines. From the superior nuchal lines, that to lateral 2/3, this occipital belly originates, and it also gets inserted into the epicranial aponeurosis. Then what is the nerve supply? This is the nerve supply. Posterior auricular branch of facial nerve is the nerve supply of occipitofrontalis. Occipital belly. For occipital belly, posterior auricular branch of facial nerve is the main nerve supply. Now what are the actions? If you see the actions, the frontal belly, if you see, it raises the eyebrows, as in surprise. The frontal belly mainly raises the eyebrows in surprise, whereas occipital belly, it produces transverse wrinkles on the forehead. When occipital belly contracts, transverse wrinkles are seen on the forehead. When frontal belly contracts, this will raises the eyebrows as in surprise. So this is about the occipitofrontalis. Then if you see next, the next, let us now learn about the, we have motor supply of scalp, and also we have important thing is sensory supply of scalp, and we also have motor supply of scalp. Okay, so first we will see the sensory supply of scalp. So in the sensory supply of scalp, mainly you have see the sensory supply, it is mainly by two nerves. One is ophthalmic branch of trigeminal nerves, and we have the maxillary and mandibular branch of trigeminal nerves, okay, in the anterior part, and posterior part it is by other nerves. So we divide it into two parts, one in front of the mandible, the second has behind the mandible, one in front of the mandible, second behind the mandible. So if you see in front of the mandible, it is supplied by supratrochlear nerve. We have supratrochlear nerve, supraorbital nerve, this is supraorbital nerve, and then we have zygomaticotemporal nerve, auriculotemporal nerve. So what are they? Supratrochlear, supraorbital, zygomaticotemporal and auriculotemporal. Then if you see behind the auricle we have the following. We have greater auricular nerve. Behind the auricle we have greater auricular nerve, lesser occipital nerve, greater occipital nerve, and we have third occipital nerve. What are they? We have greater auricular nerve, lesser occipital nerve, greater occipital nerve, third occipital nerve. Okay, so these are the nerves which are supplying sensory supply. Then if you see motor supply is only by two branches. One which is this is the temporal branch of facial nerve, which is also supplying the frontalis muscle, whereas we have the behind the ear we have posterior branch of auricular nerve, posterior auricular branch of facial nerve, which is also supplying the occipitalis. So this is posterior auricular branch of facial nerve. In the front, temporal branch of facial nerve. Okay, next now if you see, we will see the arterial supply of the scalp. So if you see in the arterial supply of the scalp, we have the following important things in the arterial supply of the scalp. So the arteries which are supplied are mainly of two types. One, we have these arteries can also be are mainly the branch of ophthalmic artery. From the branch of ophthalmic artery, from internal carotid artery, we have two branches which we get. One, we have supratrochlear artery, second we have supraorbital artery. Okay, the arterial supply in the front by the supratrochlear, supraorbital artery, and also we also have superficial temporal artery. So here we have superficial temporal artery and posterior auricular artery. We have superficial temporal artery, posterior auricular artery, and occipital arteries, which are the branches from external carotid artery. From external carotid artery, we have the branches which supply the scalp, which include superficial temporal artery, posterior auricular artery, and occipital artery. From the ophthalmic branch of internal carotid artery, there is supratrochlear artery, supraorbital artery. So because of these arteries, see this scalp has high vascular supply. So because of this high vascular supply, the blood vessels are bleed profusely. Because of this high vascular supply, the blood vessels of the scalp will actually they bleed profusely. Okay, what are the branches of external carotid artery supplying the scalp? They are superficial temporal artery, posterior auricular artery, and occipital artery. Right, now this is arterial supply of scalp. Then we have to see about the venous drainage of scalp. Okay, so if you see venous drainage, it is a bit complicated. So if you see the venous drainage of scalp, see the veins. So we have mainly, see I'll just tell you the outline. So first we will have supratrochlear and supraorbital veins in the from the front of the face, from supratrochlear and supraorbital veins, the blood will drain Okay, the blood from the front of the scalp will drain into supratrochlear and supraorbital veins. From supraorbital to supratrochlear and supraorbital veins, the blood goes to the angular vein. Okay, so from the angular vein it forms the facial vein. Okay, this facial vein now combines with the, see, okay, so this is facial vein. Now we will also see this part here. If you see this part, there is superior temporal vein. Okay, here we have superior temporal vein. Now from the superior temporal vein, okay, a branch comes to, superior temporal vein. There is also maxillary vein which develops. Okay, this superior temporal vein and maxillary vein, both these will form retromandibular vein. Okay, this retromandibular vein, so this is the retromandibular vein. It divides into two branches, anterior division and posterior division. Okay, now this anterior division of retromandibular vein and the facial vein, both these will combine together to form common facial vein. So if you see, now the anterior division of retromandibular vein and the facial vein combine together to form common facial vein, whereas the posterior division of retromandibular vein and the posterior auricular vein combine together to form external jugular vein. Okay, now this common facial vein will drain into the internal jugular vein. So let me just tell you this again. So we have from the upper part of the scalp, that is from the anterior aspect of the scalp, the blood drains into supratrochlear and supraorbital vein. So this supratrochlear and supraorbital vein, both these combine together to form angular vein. Then some more tributaries join and it forms facial vein. Okay, that is facial vein. Then that is one part. And the second part, if you see here, in front of the ear we have superficial temporal vein and maxillary vein. Both these will combine to form retromandibular vein. This retromandibular vein will give two branches. One we have anterior division, second we have posterior division. Anterior division of retromandibular vein combines with the facial vein to form common facial vein, whereas posterior division of retromandibular vein combines with the posterior auricular vein and it forms external jugular vein, whereas anterior division of retromandibular vein combines with facial vein and it forms common facial vein. This common facial vein will now join into the internal jugular vein. Okay, that is one thing. Then we also have some things which you have to learn about the emissary vein. What are emissary veins? These are the veins which are connecting the outside the cranium with the internal dural venous sinuses. So these will actually connect the veins outside the cranial with the intracranial dural venous sinuses. So we have two types of emissary veins. So one we have parietal emissary veins. Okay, second we have mastoid emissary veins. We have parietal emissary veins and we have mastoid emissary veins. So what do you see in parietal emissary veins? In parietal emissary veins, these will pass through the parietal foramen. These parietal emissary veins will pass through the parietal foramen. These will pass through the parietal foramen and they will, okay, these will pass through the parietal foramen. Okay, whereas this mastoid emissary vein will pass through mastoid foramen. So as the name says, this parietal emissary vein will communicate with superior sagittal sinus, whereas this mastoid emissary vein will communicate with sigmoid sinus. Okay, now if you see the lymphatic drainage, in the lymphatic drainage, okay, the lymphatic drainage, the lymph from the anterior part of the scalp drains into preauricular and superficial parotid lymph nodes, whereas the lymph from the posterior part of the scalp drains into posterior auricular or mastoid or occipital lymph nodes. Okay, next let us learn some points about the temple. So if you see the temple, so this is the part which we call it as temple. Okay, so this is called as temple. So even we have layers of temple. The temple has hair, it has skin, connective tissue, it has hair, skin, connective tissue, and extension to the extracranial aponeurosis is seen. It has skin, see this is hair, then it has skin followed by connective tissue which contains blood vessels almost similar to scalp, and it has extension of, okay, so we have so this this is connective tissue. Then we have extension of epicranial aponeurosis. Okay, this extension of epicranial aponeurosis is present. So this extension of epicranial aponeurosis, the important point is it gives origin to two nerves, two muscles, which is auricularis anterior and auricularis superior. So this extension of epicranial aponeurosis of temple gives rise to auricularis anterior and auricularis superior muscles. Okay, then below this we have one more fascia, which is temporal fascia. What is this? This is the temporal fascia. This temporal fascia will form the roof of the temporal fossa. See, this is the temporal fossa, and this temporal fascia will form the roof of the temporal fossa. Then it is this temporal fascia, if you see, it is attached above to the temporal line. This is temporal line, and this is the zygomatic arch. So it is attached above to the temporal vein, and it is attached below to the zygomatic arch. So this is about temporal fascia. Then after temporal fascia, we have below it we have temporal muscle. This is the large fan shaped temporal muscle. Below the temporal muscle we have pericranium. Okay, what are the layers of the temple? We have hair, skin, connective tissue, then we have extension of epicranial aponeurosis, then we have temporal fascia, temporal muscle, and pericranium. So these are the different layers of the temple. Then we have temporal fascia. So if you see the temporal fascia, this temporal fascia actually has two layers. There are two layers of temporal fascia. First is the superficial fascia. We have superficial surface, and then we have deep surface. Okay, superficial surface is related to if you see the superficial surface, it is related to superficial temporal vessels, okay, and auriculotemporal nerve and temporal branch of facial nerve. Superficial fascia is related to superficial temporal vessels, auriculotemporal nerve, and temporal branch of facial nerve. Whereas deep fascia, deep surface is related to some fibers of temporalis. So superficial fascia is related to superficial temporal vessels, auriculotemporal nerve, and temporal branch of facial nerve. Whereas deep surface is related to temporalis fibers. Okay, so this is about the temple of superficial fascia. See, I can even show you the superficial fascia. So if you see this superficial fascia, it has two things. See, superficial surface and deep surface. Deep surface has this muscle fibers. What are these? These are nothing but temporalis muscle fibers. Whereas superficial fibers related to superficial temporal muscles will be there here. Auriculotemporal nerve and temporal branch of facial nerve will be there. Okay, next if you see sternocleidomastoid. So we will learn few points about sternocleidomastoid. This is the sternocleidomastoid muscle. So whenever there is spasm of this sternocleidomastoid, this results in torticollis, okay, where the head bends to one side and chin points to the other side. Okay, so here this will cause torticollis, right? So this sternocleidomastoid causes torticollis, that is bending to the one side. So what is the insertion and origin? This sternocleidomastoid mainly it originates from the sternal head. Okay, in the origin we have the sternal head of sternocleidomastoid and we have clavicular head of sternocleidomastoid. So it originates from the anterior superior lateral surface of manubriae of sternum and medial 1/3 of the clavicle, and it gets inserted into the lateral surface of the mastoid process, and it gets inserted into the lateral surface of mastoid process by thin aponeurosis, and it also gets inserted into the superior nuchal lines. So these are the main places where it gets inserted. Okay, then what are the actions of this muscle? If you see the actions, this will tilt the muscle to one side. Okay, this will tilt the head to one side. Okay, then if you see what is it superficially related, you have skin, then platysma, then you have cutaneous nerves like greater auricular nerve, transverse cervical nerves, medial supraclavicular nerve, lesser occipital nerve, external jugular vein. So all these nerves are important. Relationships of sternocleidomastoid with these nerves we have greater auricular nerve, transverse cervical nerve, medial supraclavicular nerve, and lesser occipital nerve. Okay, then we have external jugular vein also. Then what about the arterial supply? Arterial supply, if the upper part is derived from the occipital artery and posterior auricular artery. The upper part is supplied by the occipital artery and posterior auricular artery, whereas the middle part is supplied by the superior thyroid artery. Middle part is supplied by the superior thyroid artery, and lower part is supplied by the suprathyroid artery. So we have upper part which is supplied by occipital and posterior auricular artery, middle part supplied by superior thyroid artery, and lower part is supplied by suprascapular artery. And what about the nerve supply? The nerve supply of this is spinal accessory nerve, that is ventral rami of C2 C3. Nerve supply is by spinal accessory nerve, that is ventral rami and ventral rami of C2 C3. So this is about sternocleidomastoid muscle. Then if you see, we see deep relations of this muscle. These are also asked ones. So deep relations are in the anterior part. In the upper part, it is related to posterior belly of digastric, longissimus capitis and splenius muscle, and in the upper part the artery which it is related to is occipital artery. The artery which is related to the occipital artery. In the upper part it is related to occipital artery. Then in the middle part we have levator scapulae, scalenus medius, scalenus anterior, scalenus posterior, splenius capitis, inferior belly of omohyoid. Then the arteries related to it are common carotid and internal carotid artery, and it is related to veins like internal jugular and anterior jugular veins. Then nerves are, we have nerves which are vagus nerve, spinal accessory nerve, cervical plexus, brachial plexus and ansa cervicalis. And obviously in the middle we have thyroid gland and lymph nodes. Okay, then in the lower part we have muscles like suprahyoid muscle, sternothyroid muscle and scalenus anterior. And what are the arteries which you see in the lower part? In the lower part you see common carotid and internal carotid arteries in the lower part, and the vein that you see is anterior jugular vein you see. And what are the nerves which you see here? You see brachial plexus and phrenic nerves are seen. Okay, so this is about the deeper relations. At least you should remember the arteries and nerves. Then we will see the triangles. Now we are going to learn about the triangles of the neck in the next class. Thank you guys for watching my lecture. Thank you.